I contacted some people I really trust and asked, if you were listening to a podcast with a, marketing lead and her CEO, like, what would you want to hear them talk about? And overwhelmingly, people came back with like, well, I just want to hear about like how they make decisions. How do they disagree? How do they prioritize? And I was like, well, that just sounds like our one-on-ones. And then I was like, oh, well, that's the show. Like, we'll just invite people to our one-on-ones.
You're listening to the Content 10X podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximize your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Content 10X podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, and today's episode is all about adding personality to your B2B podcast. And I am joined by a fantastic guest. So I'm joined by Jess Cook, who is a VP of Marketing at Vector. And we're going to be talking all about Vector's fantastic podcast called This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. We have the pleasure of working with Jess and her team on the podcast. We help with the repurposing, so we know how absolutely fantastic it is. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. Vector is a contact-based advertising platform for B2B marketers. It helps companies identify the people visiting their website or interacting with their ads, and they can build targeted ad audiences around those individuals. And Jess explains more about Vector at the start of our conversation. Now, this is the second time Jess has been on the Content 10X podcast. She joined me a couple of years ago when she was at Ireland, and there we talked about how they were embracing repurposing in their content plans at Ireland, and it was helping their small marketing team look big. So that was a great conversation. I'll link to Jess's first appearance in the show notes. In this episode, we share the thinking behind the podcast, and Jess shares a fantastic story about how she scrapped her original idea for the show and gave herself 24 hours to come up with something new. We talk about the importance of a podcast name and also the titles of episodes, and how Jess likes to name her episodes like a Seinfeld episode. We also discuss how they've really lent into personal branding for Jess and her co-host and Vector CEO Josh, and how their personal brands have become a real awareness magnet for Vector. We run through the benefits that the podcast has brought, both the expected and planned for benefits to some of the unexpected benefits as well. Plus, we get into some of their exciting marketing plans in 2026 that stretch beyond the podcast, including a really quirky and fun event series that they have coming up, which involves their mascot. So before we get to it, I'd love to share a clip from This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast so that you can really get a feel for the show and what it's all about. And I've specifically chosen this clip because it's on a topic that Jess and I talk about towards the end of the conversation.
Josh,
yeah,
I have one question for you.
Sure.
And that's, what were you thinking when you tried to take over marketing when I was on vacation?
I was trying to prove that marketing is not that hard. And I was wrong. So we already had this like a little bit of this like chemistry of like crazy CEO and like poor marketing leader. And on Monday, I started off my scheme by like posting on LinkedIn, like, I'm going to prove that like marketers aren't that special. CEO, founder can do it. Like no biggie. Mm-hmm. So I posted this thing that's basically like, everyone give me your worst ideas. And it went off and people had wild ideas.
And then I'm in a pool in Turks and Caicos, and I scroll and I'm like, what the hell is happening? And it's everyone has tagged me because you're trying to basically have a mutiny while I'm gone. I think I responded and I was like, Josh, I have Wi-Fi.
So we had all these people and like I authentically did not have a plan. And like
marketing's hard.
I was like, I have all this attention. How do I actually capture it? And I remember just like, as most people do when they have an idea, you pull up GoDaddy and you're like, I'm going to buy a domain. And I bought Monday night, I'mSorryJess.com. And in that night, I built a entire website, like beautiful hand coded, not a Wix template. Like I coded a
Yes.
custom branded website called I'mSorryJess.com.
I love that clip, and I really hope that it gives you a good idea of what the podcast is all about. So, without further ado, let's jump to the conversation. Jess, welcome back to the Content 10X podcast.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm so glad to be here again.
Well, you say again, it's crazy because it was 2 years ago, and you were at Ireland at the time. We were speaking about how to make a small marketing team look big by great content systems, repurposing, that kind of thing. A lot's changed because you're at Vector now, which we'll dig into. But yeah, time flies. So thank you for coming back on the show.
It absolutely does. Yeah, for sure. But I'm so glad to be back and we have so much to talk about.
I know, and congrats, everything at Vector, just the content, everything is looking fantastic. And, I know you're VP of marketing now, so very big congrats on that. To get things started, just a bit of an intro for anyone who hasn't met you before. I think most people in the B2B marketing world are familiar with you, Jess, because you're very well known. But if you could just say a bit of an intro to what you're doing at Vector, and of course, what Vector does. I think it's super interesting for our audience as marketers to know about you and about Vector as well.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Jess Cook. I'm VP of marketing at Vector. VP, but it's funny, like when you get married and you're like, this is my husband or this is my wife, right? And it takes you a while to get used to that. It's like the same thing. My background is actually in B2C copywriting and creative direction. So I did that for about 15 years on some big CPG brands, mostly like McDonald's, Kellogg, Kimberly Clark. And then made the transition to B2B back in 2019. I moved into B2B content and stood up some content functions in a couple different companies, and then came to Vector a year ago, and was as their head of marketing. So this is my first like real head of marketing role, and yeah, just got promoted to VP of marketing, which is super exciting, which is funny and never a role I thought I would ever want, but it's so I'm having so much fun and learning so much. Vector is a really, really cool technology for marketers that lets you build ad audiences at the contact level. So people visiting your site, people clicking your ads, people researching your competitors or relevant keywords. We can actually show you who they are, and then you can build ad audiences from them and put your ads directly in front of them, which is like, wow, what a difference that makes in this world where less traffic is coming to your site because of AI, and we're not sure of anyone's journey because, they're so informed by the time they get to your website. And so being able to kind of add like paid ads to a nurture program, like turn paid ads into nurture, has been really, really game changing for many of our customers.
How long has Vector been in existence? Like, what's the life story of Vector?
Yeah. So our founders were both ex-military. They are both in the Air Force. Funny enough, they did not meet each other in the Air Force. They both met each other when they worked at Drift, um, and they were both in the sales engineering department. And so they kind of bonded there and decided they wanted to start a company together someday. And so, after work hours, they would sit around and talk about like what can we build, all on Zoom. They don't live in the same city. And so they have been going for about 3 years. Vector in its current state, kind of as a, contact level marketing advertising platform, has been around now for just about 2 years. So, yeah, and so I joined about a year in once they kind of, like, really figured out what they were and kind of what they stood for, and they needed somebody to come run marketing and really make this thing real to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, I know you've done a lot with Vector, but something that I really want to talk about today is your fantastic podcast. So, this meeting could have been a podcast, which is a really, really good podcast. We'll dig into all of that. But, first question, so why did you decide, okay, this is something we're going to do? We need a podcast. I know you're no stranger to podcasts because that's something you've been on, you've had your own and all that. But what was the thinking here of the podcast?
So my background being in brand and copywriting, I knew that if we were going to break through in this very, very crowded one like martech ad tech space, um But if we had any chance of like standing out just as a brand and as kind of a new category, this idea of like contact level advertising, and contact level targeting, we were gonna have to do something really different, and people were gonna have to get to know us, our team, and specifically our founder, and as we market to marketers, myself, our head of marketing. So, um, I wanted to do a podcast, just me and my CEO. His name is Josh. He's amazing, and we were, like, throwing around ideas, and we came up with an idea that we thought was pretty good. We had a fun name for it. It was called Funnel Cake. It was supposed to be how do you get people through the funnel in a fun and unexpected way? And each episode was gonna be about, like, a different way that you could do that, and every time we sat down to outline this thing, we, like, just didn't do it. Like, we weren't excited about it or we find something else to talk about, and it made me realize, like, this is not the right show. Like, clearly, if we're not interested enough in building it, like, people aren't gonna be enough to listen to it. And so at one point, we were, like, 8 days from getting on a plane and flying to the studio. We filmed the podcast, in person, and we were about, a week away from flying down to the studio to film. And I went to Josh and I said, "We don't have a show. Like, I think you need to give me 24 hours and I will come back to you with the show." And he was like, "Okay." And so I was like kind of spiraling. I've done this before though, right? Like I have a ad agency background. I'm no stranger to like pulling a crazy idea
Yeah.
out of my hat last minute. And I knew I could do it. I just had to kind of sit and figure it out. And so I took a good 24 hours. I contacted some people I really trust and asked like, if you were listening to a podcast with a, marketing lead and her CEO, like, what would you want to hear them talk about? And overwhelmingly, people came back with like, "Well, I just wanna hear about, like, how they make decisions. How do they disagree? How do they prioritize?" And I was like, "Well, that just sounds like our one-on-ones." And then I was like, "Oh, well, that's the show. Like, we'll just invite people to our one-on-ones." And so but I my one of my big, hypotheses in marketing is if you give something a great title, that's like half the battle. Like, people will get
Yeah.
excited when they hear a great name of something. And so I was like, this has to have a great name. And so I sat down. I had a list of 200 names at one point, and I was just, sometimes you just have to like get the garbage out and you'll find the gem. And I just kept going and going and going. And finally, I landed on this meeting could have been a podcast. And it kind of popped up in my list as I was kind of going, and I kept coming back to it. And I was like, there's something there. Like, that's really nice. It's kind of like a turn of phrase. It makes people smile. Like, anytime I said it to somebody, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Like, they got it, right? And I think it kind of tells you what it is. Like, this meeting that you are in, it could have been a podcast, and we're going to turn it
Yeah.
into one. I brought all of this thinking to Josh, and I think the other thing that kinda sealed it was the episode names. So, as you know, Amy, because you and your team at 10X, you do all of our repurposing and copywriting for all of the video titles and blog posts, show notes, all of that, which is like, what a lifesaver. Um, each episode is named after, like it's almost like a Seinfeld episode. So it'll
Yeah.
be like, Jess wants a real marketing budget, and that will be the whole episode. We'll just talk about how I got my marketing budget. Josh wants to do influencer marketing, and we'll just talk about that, right? So each episode is kind of like one thing that we have actually done. Like we will go back and talk about, hey, remember that time you wanted to do an influencer program and I told you you were out of your mind because, you wanted to do it for this much money and blah, blah, blah. And so they end up being very specific. And I think the thing that makes it really magical is Josh and I have great chemistry, like professional chemistry, right? Like where he and I can be very real with each other. We have no problem poking fun at each other. We can both say the thing I think that a lot of marketers and probably a lot of CEOs want to say to their like the other
Yeah.
counterpart, right? And can't because they maybe have a more fraught relationship or they're just not as close, or their CEO doesn't understand marketing. And so we're able to have those conversations and people are able to hear them and take away from them like, "Oh, okay, I'm thinking about this the right way. I'm not crazy," right? And I think we try to arm people with, like, how to have those conversations and what are the things you should be talking about? What are the things you need to bring to each other to have a better relationship, to make decisions together that you're both really happy with? So It's been fun. We just wrapped season 2, like, season 2, the final episode actually dropped a couple weeks ago, and we're about to go film season 3 in 2 months.
Yeah, super exciting. You know, when you were planning it, like you were saying about how the episode titles are great. It's like a saga, as it is like, Josh did, like Jess did that stuff. And then the show notes as well, and all the fun, whimsical aspect of it, and how it's a bit like kind of commenting on a show, like you said, like Seinfeld, that kind of thing. When you said, give me 24 hours and I'm going to get this all wrapped up, had you thought about all that as well? You know, like we're going to do titles a bit like a show on Netflix kind of thing. Did you get that far or not quite that far at that stage?
Amy, I had nothing. Like, I was like,
Right,
Hail
okay.
Mary. I need to come up with something better than what we have because we're about to invest a lot in this. It
Yeah,
has to be
yeah,
great. Like, not even good, it
yeah,
has to be great. You know what really figured it out helped me figure it out, and, like, after I got that title, "This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast," it kinda snowballed from there. Like, after I landed on that, I was like, "Okay." I kind of knew before the title, like, what it was gonna be. It was gonna be me and him talking about one topic, one thing that we had
yeah,
accomplished together, one decision we had made, one program we ran that I sold in, that he agreed to, that he gave me budget for, and I went and did, and here are the results. And so once I knew that was the premise, and then I went and figured out like a great title, and then I was like, okay, I can really start to see this take shape now. I think each episode could be one thing, and we're gonna just call it that. We're just gonna say, like, Jess wants to do this, Josh wants to do this. Like, that will be one, helpful for people trying to find resources on how to do these things. And two, it'll be interesting. Like, it'll be different. No one's really doing that. And so that felt really fun. So yeah, no, I had nothing. And I think it just kind of like snowballed a little bit at a time over that 24 hours. And when I went back to him, I think he could just tell in my excitement that I had found something really great.
yeah. And I think, as you said, it's amazing that you do have such good chemistry with each other for the show. I sometimes wonder how many people consume the show, watch the videos or the podcast, and then get annoyed at how they don't have a good relationship with us. How many people are like, I wish I had a relationship with my CEO like Jess has with Josh and vice versa, because like you said, you're so open and honest with each other and you're dead respectful of each other's expertise, and also you can kind of make fun of each other and of situations and things like that. So it's dead refreshing to watch when we have meetings now. This meeting could have been a podcast has become a bit of a household name, actually, because after a good meeting we go, that should have been a podcast. We even do that down the pub now. If you have like a good night out and you just put the world to rights, and we'll go like, this should have been a podcast. So, like, I really like it. Yeah, so you should get a button that you should press that says there should have been a podcast. But yeah, maybe maybe that could be a prop that you could
Great
give
idea.
out at an event, couldn't
Yeah.
you? And then it could
Oh
be,
my gosh, I love
yeah,
that.
yeah. So you already mentioned it, but you said, you guys obviously it's an investment, and it's that apart from all the planning and everything, that becomes a big thing when you both head on a plane and go to a studio and spend a few days recording the seasons. So you don't live near each other, so you could have done this Riverside Zoom, what we're doing, but you made the decision in person. What were the key things for that? Just deciding we need to show that, we're going to bounce off each other more in person, really.
Yeah, a couple things. So I've done this kind of remote podcast before, which is amazing. Super helpful when you have 2 people, different parts of the world who just wanna have a
Yeah.
great conversation. But I think in the vein of Vector doing everything just a little bit differently, that felt important that we would meet in person and be kind of in the same room. I think the comedy can happen a little better that way because you're not kind of waiting for the other person's audio to come in on, whatever recording, mechanism you're using, things like that. So we can actually like quip a little faster together. And also production wise, doing a remote podcast is a constant like produce, edit, push live, produce, edit, push live. This way allowed us to get 8 episodes in the can in 2 days, edit on a continuous basis and then kind of push live at a cadence that we felt comfortable with. So it didn't we get a lot of the production work done, and from there it's like post and promotion. And so it feels a little less like we're always in it as kind of a to do. And that felt important too, because I thought I thought we really needed to invest in like one big season, see how it did, see what it did for us, and then decide like, do we continue with this? Is this the right thing? And luckily it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, just a little break from this week's episode to let you know about becoming a Content 10x Insider. If you want more content repurposing tips and advice, then why not join hundreds of business owners, marketers, and content creators who get them delivered straight to their inbox once a week by subscribing to the Content 10x newsletter. As well as tips and advice, you get industry updates, inspiring stories, exclusive content, offers, and more. You can subscribe at content10x.com/newsletter, and there's a link in the show notes too. Okay, back to this week's episode. When you talk about the promotional side of it, so you record and then obviously we have the content. What has been the plan there then for the distribution of it and the promotion of the show?
Yeah. So we started out small, again, just because, like, it was new. We wanted to just kinda make sure that there was some signal, that there was some interest, and so we really just started out, like, we use Transistor as our hosting platform. We're pushing it to all, like, the major podcast platforms, but because we have such polished video, we were like, "This is great for YouTube." We also have a, YouTube channel, so we're putting it there, and have like the podcast up on YouTube in video format. And so that was where we started. And it was just kind of like, let's just see what happens. And then when a new episode would drop, Josh and I would both do a post about it. And I'll come back to this because I have some good stories for like how that kind of evolved. And then the off week, so it's a biweekly podcast, comes out on Wednesdays. So the Wednesday that it drops, Josh and I would do a post each, and then the following Wednesday, I would write a newsletter about one big takeaway from that episode, and we would send it to our subscribers. And that email has done incredibly well. I don't think I realized that was kind of a dark horse for me. I did not see that happening. I think the thing that surprised me the most was just like the number of replies I get to that of people like, "This was so helpful. I'm in the middle of doing this thing you just talked about on the podcast right now, and this is going to be my guide to help me like sell it in." Those kind of messages, like, man, that's such a big win, because that was the idea of this podcast. Like, we didn't want it to sell vector. We wanted it to be helpful. We just wanted marketing leaders to be able to see themselves in these problems and get maybe one little tip that might help them make it through on the other side successfully. So that's really exciting. That email also has almost a 50% open rate, which is like, oh, like
Wow.
just
Yeah.
warms my heart. That's
Yeah, that's
amazing to me.
amazing.
So social promotion, we started out using our video clips. So with each episode, we get like 4 video clips that you all do a fabulous job of like attaching titles and some really cute little descriptions. We put those in YouTube Shorts, and I always like to see like which one like really takes off, because there's always one of the 4 that like outperforms the others usually, and it's never the one I would think.
No.
And I think your titles always, like, do such a great job of just, like, capturing attention or curiosity, people being like, "What? What is that even about?" Right? And so, the shorts have done really well for us as, like, a discovery mechanism.
Yeah.
When I was posting them on LinkedIn, despite LinkedIn always being like, "Video's the thing, and we're gonna promote video really heavily," I just wasn't getting the traction that I wanted, which was really surprising. And I thought, I wonder if people just they're in that scroll mode and they're just not willing to give me even, 30, 45 seconds of their time, um, get into this thing and to get to the punchline, right? And so, um I was on Instagram one day, and on Instagram, I follow Good Hang with Amy Poehler, and which is now, I believe, an Emmy award-winning podcast
Oh,
here.
didn't
First
know
ever, I think,
that.
Emmy for a podcast. And the way she promotes her podcasts on Instagram is she almost makes like a little I call it like a comic strip. It's like stills from the podcast, so kind of like 3 stacked on top of each other of her and her guest, and then whatever they're saying in that moment is kind of superimposed on each of those 3. And it's always like something funny or insightful or like just makes you smile. And I thought, I'm gonna try that. I'm just gonna grab like a quick moment from our podcast of back and forth of me and Josh. I'm gonna create this little comic. And the very first one of those I did, I had like 6 or 8 times the number of impressions on that image than I did any video clip from the podcast I published before. So, and now we've gone on and we've done that almost every single episode, that has dropped since, unless there's like a really killer clip that's like really crushing on Shorts or something. But that is kind of the format that we're following because I think, when people are scrolling, they just want like that quick dopamine hit.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
faster I can get them to the joke, the better on LinkedIn. So that has been really, really successful for us.
And it's so on brand, isn't it? Because, like we were saying, with it, like the show titles and being like a TV show kind of thing, I've seen them. They're great. Like you said, it's a bit like like a comic, like a book, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
it's like showing clips from a show and like that kind of thing. It's so on brand because it's playful and it immediately makes you smile. And you can stop and have a look. I always see them, so I think they look fantastic. I'd love to know from a LinkedIn perspective, you and Josh, you lean into your personal profiles and personal brands more than the vector page, don't you? And you've spoken about this on the the show, but for the audience specifically for this show, like what was the thinking behind that going more for like the personal posts, versus
Yeah.
brand?
Well, I think the first thing is that brand pages don't get any reach anymore. I'll post something there and, I had in the past, and our team would be the only one to engage with it. It would get, 6 likes and 100 impressions. And I was like, what is the point of this? On the flip side, our personal pages get really great engagement. And I would rather people get to know us and like us. That's something we always try to do at Vector is just optimize for likability. An underrated tactic of just get people to like you and eventually when they need you, they'll come to you. And so like what better way to do that than with your people? And so that's something we've been really focused on is like really pushing everything from my personal LinkedIn, from Josh's personal LinkedIn. We have a really great group of employees now who are doing the same thing, who, already had an audience when they came to Vector, which was kind of a little built-in cherry on top, or they're very interested now because we really encourage that. Like we want everyone in the company to be talking about what they're doing. How were you a part of this launch, this product, this crazy thing we did? Tell us what you're working on. So I think that's gotten us just a lot of eyeballs and affinity just by doing that. And then Josh and I also have this kind of, this chemistry, this kind of funny back and forth, this little like poke fun at each other that lives on LinkedIn as well now. And so, he'll comment on something and tag me in it and he'll be like, oh, I think the other day it was like, Jess, you're about to be replaced by, some sort of agent. And my reply was like, I will literally come to your house to talk about that.
I
Right, so, like, we have kind of this,
love
like,
it.
back and forth that I think people find fun that's now, expanded from the podcast into LinkedIn, and so, yeah, I find it to be like an awareness magnet for us, the podcast and our kind of personal
Yeah.
brands and our interactions on LinkedIn of it's a really big way that people discover who we are, and by way of that, discover Vector.
Are there any unexpected benefits that you've had? Like the email, great open rate, growing the personal brand, trust factor, a lot of things there that you'd hope and factor in your approach. But like, have you been really surprised at just like any other unexpected benefits of the podcast?
I have. I think when you have a really fun brand that just brings even just a tiny, like, smile or spark of, like, happiness to people, uh, they are much more willing to talk about you. So word of mouth, I think, is just a lot flows a lot faster for us because we have a great brand. Um partnerships with like, the ecosystem of other great companies that we want to partner with to try and grow business, or the ability to get in on like some sort of really big sponsorship. You know what? I won't name names, but we just got like a really, really amazing, we just procured a tool that we've been wanting to use for a really long time, and they were out of our budget, like their actual list price, but they were like, "We really want to work with you, like, please." So, like, I think there's just all of this, like, people just want to be in your sphere when you have a cool brand like that, and they want to work with you, they want to learn more. I think you just get a lot more, kind of cu it opens a lot of doors in
Yeah.
every facet for your company to be able to grow in a way that maybe you wouldn't have if you weren't so gosh darn likable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. Like you said, not just the people wanting to external people, but the people wanting to come and work for Vector with you, with the team. Like the employee value proposition is drastically
Oh my god.
enhanced.
When you, have a product like this, when you have a brand like this, people line up. They get very excited to work on something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just switching gears a little bit from the podcast. So, in the rest of like 2026 in your marketing playbook, we've got the next season of podcast coming up, as we said. What are your other like big priorities, or is there something, other things that you're specifically going to be leaning into in the next sort of part of the year?
Yeah. We have some pretty big bets this year. One is events. We're gonna do an owned series of events. I'm so excited about it. It's called the Ghost Tour. So we haven't really gotten into this, but our mascot is a ghost. We have a mascot. He's super cute. His name's Ghosty, and he always has like some sort of accessory, or he's doing something funny or mischievous. And the idea is like we reveal who's behind your ad clicks and your site visits. So, Ghost kind of made sense. So we will be doing a handful of private dinners in different cities, inviting prospects and customers to come with us, and then we'll set off on a walking ghost tour for the evening. We're gonna do some really cool like merch, like it's gonna have like a concert tee with like all the tour stops on the back. We have a little ghost plushie, and so the idea is that we'd give those to everyone, but also like an exclusive, almost like a little Build-A-Bear, if you know what that is, like a little Build-A-Bear outfit for the ghostie that matches the city that we were in. So we have some just like fun
That's
little
brilliant.
surprises for people that'll be really cool, kind of exclusive stuff. So that's a big one for us. Like events are going to be a big part of this year. Already are a big part of this year. A lot more just like product education and content. So, just hired a content marketer, just so exciting, and she hasn't even been here a month, and she's already, like, doing such incredible work, and so just making sure that, like, we're prioritizing the stuff that's kind of the center of the Venn diagram of, like, the stuff people want and will give them value, and the stuff that will help them understand, like, what is this thing around contact level targeting and advertising. And so we're really focused there. Podcast, obviously, keeping brand going, kind of I think that's, something that keeps me up at night is, like, how do we keep outdoing ourselves because we've done such
Yeah, the bar's high.
and
Yeah.
then I think the last thing it really is because we market to marketers who are running ads, demand gen marketers, ABM marketers, we have to get really good at ads this year. And so we hired a demand gen marketer. He started back in January. He's already got us on like CTV. We're already seeing demos getting requested from the work he's doing. He's done some incredible, incredible stuff. So just like keeping that moving, doing a lot of like vector on vector, like how are we sipping our own champagne and how do we share that back with customers and prospects?
Yeah, busy time ahead then, and like you said, the bar is high. Super important final question. Do you have any vacations planned? And is Josh planning to hijack it and reinstate I'm sorry, Jess.com? Because that was a funny story.
I do. I do. I'm
Are
going
you
on a
on guard?
cruise. I'm going on a
Yeah,
cruise because he can't get to
cruise.
me there. There's no, my phone doesn't even reach a tower. So, yeah, it's his
Gonna
fault,
have
but I have
to
to go on a cruise, honestly.
W you were somewhere fairly remote last time though, right? When you it was all kicking off and you were
I
weren't
was in
you somewhere yeah,
Turks and
you were,
Caicos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're gonna try a cruise. I'm should have hit check before record if I'm sorry, Jess.com is still,
Oh, it's
is that
still live. Yeah, it's
is
still live.
it still live?
Yeah,
We'll put the link in the show notes. So if
there
you
you
want to
go.
go and see what this is all about, and we'll link to the episode for this. But so you're going on vacation soon. We'll just have to keep an eye out for what goes on those
Yeah.
channels
Oh,
during that
Lord.
time. Then.
Pray for me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been fantastic just hearing all about your role, everything that a podcast has done at Vector and all the plans you have. And again, congrats, because the bar is so high. You've done such an awesome job with what you've been doing with Vector. So it's really exciting to see where you'll go now that you're growing the team and expanding and things like that too. So yeah, thank you. Is there any, obviously we'll put links to you and Josh and the show and Vector, but any steps you'd like the audience to take apart from kind of check all of those out?
If you hear this and you want to connect, shoot me a message on LinkedIn and just let me know you heard me here. And I love getting notes from folks who've listened and want to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, we'll put the link to connect with Jess in the show notes. Well, thank you. I'll let you get back to Ghosty and the team. But thank you so much for coming on the show, Jess. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you to you and your team. Everything you guys do to make our podcast great. Hugely appreciated. Couldn't do it without you.
Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. Thanks, Jess. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the Content 10x podcast, then why not hit that subscribe button on your podcast listening app of choice so that you can get updated when new episodes are released. And I'd really, really appreciate it if you could leave a review as well. That really makes a difference for the podcast. Also, please do get a copy of my book, Content 10x, More Content, Less Time, Maximum Results. It is the ultimate guide to repurposing every type of content, and it's available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback, and also in audiobook as well. And you can head to content10x.com/book to find all the other places that you can get a copy of my book. And if you would like us to do your content repurposing for you, then we offer a fully end-to-end done for you content repurposing service. This is for podcasters and video content creators. We have our podcast 10x, video 10x, and also our specific LinkedIn 10x service, helping you to become the leading authority in your industry on LinkedIn. You can find out so much more about our services on our website. And also, please do give me a follow on the social media platforms. I share lots and lots of tips and advice on social media about content repurposing. I'm at Content 10x on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And if you try content10x.com/LinkedIn, you'll find my LinkedIn profile over there as well. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening to this week's episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.